Okay. Hey, buds. So this is take two on the supplements live that I tried to do um, last week, but apparently it was like really impossible to hear for like most of it. So I have my headphones in and I'm hoping it's much better this time. Please, actually, if you're on live and you can't hear, let me know, but I think we should be safe now. So say hi, tell me who you are. Also, if you have any specific questions about any specific supplements or whatever, if I have time, I'm happy to answer. So I want to start with a little kind of background of my stance on this because this is my personal experience and the experience of almost all of my clients and most of my friends is that when I first kind of got into health and started caring about it, which really was many years ago. So the biggest thing that, hey, Mayan, oh my gosh, I love you. It's my friend in Israel. So when I first got into caring about health, which really was honestly when I was pregnant with my oldest, who's now 11. Like many people, I was like, oh, I'm pregnant. I should take some supplements because like that's a good idea. And I'm not saying you shouldn't. But what I can tell you is I felt no different. It made no difference to me. I was still tired. I was still crampy. I was actually, with that story in particular, the cramping actually was made worse from the supplements, which we can talk about later. I still had no energy. I was still nauseous. I was still moody. Like, taking all my fancy supplements didn't do anything for how I felt. And then after that, the biggest thing also really at the beginning of my journey that got me interested in nutrition is I was like pretty moody. And it was actually my husband who noticed. He was like, did you have sugar today? And I was like, the background. He walked into the room and I was just like sitting on the couch, like super like mopey. I don't know if I was crying, but I might have been crying. And he was just like, did you have sugar today? And I was like, I don't know why. And he's like, well, what's wrong? I was like, I don't know. I'm just really upset. And he was like, I think that you get like this every time you have a bunch of like treats and like cookies and whatever. And I was like, you think so? Like, I was kind of like, that's really interesting. And he was right. I happen to be a person that's like very affected by sugar. As I've told you guys, I've mentioned a lot in here. I do much better, generally speaking, lower carb. I'm more sensitive than the average person in that way. And so when I was feeling like moody and feeling the stuff, so I was like, So we like went to Whole Foods and I was like tried a couple supplements for like mood balancing and like valerian root and whatever crap they have for your mood. And it made no difference whatsoever. I didn't feel different at all. And again, I'm not saying that they never can, but I am saying that experience that I'm sharing is extremely common. I feel most of my clients when they come to me, like at least 75% of them have like a little at-home pharmacy of all the supplements and bottles and pills and crap that are expensive that like promise the world and kind of like do squat in their experience. And so that is just fundamentally number one why I'm not big into supplements is. And I'll get deeper into why that's the case and probably why that's been your experience too, right? So number one is that supplements do not work, cannot work in the wrong food environment. So it's not that all supplements are useless and that they can never be used in a useful way. Sorry, I'm like kind of like curled up on this chair, so I'm like holding the phone weird. Right? It's not that supplements can't be useful, but they are not useful. They're not able to be effective in the wrong food environment. So just to give an example of that. Okay. So for example, how do I explain it? Like if there's Sorry, I have so many things I want to say and I'm trying to like I made notes to try and help myself, but I feel like sometimes when I make notes, it just makes me feel like I can't flow. But the bottom line is that your food day in and day out is what makes the biggest difference. And with the supplements, even if they're useful in the wrong environment, they can't take effect. So as an example for that, so B12, right? If you're like in any like mommy groups or like women groups, whatever, and you're like, oh, I'm so tired, probably you'll see someone in there being like, oh, you should start taking B12, right? Like, and then it's like, well, did it help you? They're like, I don't know, right? Because, so B12, for example, I'm going to say one other thing before I get into that. Well, no, I'm just keep going. Okay. Is there's different qualities. So B12, you can get a methylated B12, which will be called, like, if you check the ingredients in the back, it'll say B12 as methylcobalamin, or it will say B12 as cyancobalamin. Okay? Methylcobalamin is the methylated B12. That is a B12 that your body knows what to do with. So it's like talking to me in English. I understand what you're saying. But if you start talking to me in French, I don't understand, right? So, I mean, maybe I do a little better written because I speak a little Spanish, and when it's written, you can like see the root words, but that's not really relevant. So there's a quality issue. Supplements that are made from food, your body understands, your body can make do with. But supplements that are synthetic and made directly from like a chemical and are just the isolated thing, very often your body doesn't even know what to do with it. And so, so with B12, I'm like all, so B12 in particular, right? If it's methylated and your body knows what to do with it, okay, that's a good start as opposed to a synthetic version that your body doesn't know what to do with. The other thing is also though, like, B12 doesn't survive stomach acid. So if you're like, oh, hey, Hannah. So if you're taking it in a capsule or a tablet and you're swallowing it down, your stomach acid's like destroying like 95% of it. Even if it's the methylated kind, even if it's the kind your body technically would be able to absorb and make use of. Versus if you take a sublingual B12, then you can absorb it properly because you're absorbing it into your bloodstream before you digest it. My point in getting into that is not that I care so much about B12. It's that almost all vitamins and minerals are like this. They have needs. You can't just like throw things at it and be like, oh, that'll work, right? So another example is that iron and vitamin C compete for absorption. So if you're taking iron and then you take a vitamin C, like with your multivitamin or something, they counteract each other. You're not getting anything out of it, right? So the second thing, right? So number one, they can't work on the wrong food in the wrong food environment. Your food has to support what the supplement is doing in order for it to be effective. And number two, just because supplements are natural, which they're not always, right? But we think like, oh, it's natural, it's over the counter, like whatever, like, but you still like need to know what you're doing. Like, you know, like sometimes I think because it's natural, we're like, oh, I'll just pick it up, it'll work. But if you ask most people like that, you know, they're like, oh, what do you take this for? Oh, it's supposed to be good for my skin. Do you see a difference? Not really, right? It's good for my mood. Does it help? I can't tell, right? Most time, it's very unusual to be like, oh yeah, it helped me so much, right? So that's another big thing, is that, so should we take the vitamin C that you chew on? Hey, Sarah. Hey, Kayvon. Okay, so I'll get to that. In general, I'm not a big supplements person. So if you talk to my clients, 95% of my clients are at most taking one supplement, maybe two. Maybe. And there's a handful who may be taking a few more, but that's only like if they've been on the program for several months, because here's how it works. 95% of your health and your healing is going to come from what you're eating and what you're doing every day. the way that you're exercising, the way that you're eating, the choices that you're making every single day, 95%, that's going to control your health. To get from 95 to 100, sometimes a supplement can actually be useful, or 95 to 96, 95 to 97. Like when everything is like working great and you feel fantastic, then that's a good time to use a supplement to be like, oh, this a little more of this, a little more of that, right? It's like adding fresh herbs to a dish, right? If you made like an awesome salmon or awesome pasta or awesome anything, soup, and then you put like some fresh basil on top, that is like, gonna like really take it up a notch, right? Like really good salmon and then you fresh basil is like way better, right? But if your salmon sucks, like if you bought it 3 days ago and it's not bad yet, but it smells like super fishy, and then you put a disgusting sauce on it and you overcook it and now it's like dry, fishy, and disgusting, and then you put some like basil on top, like it doesn't do anything. It's still a gross fish, right? Because the foundational element of it is like, what are you enhancing? It's already bad, right? And so I really like, to me, I'm always like, I use supplements supplementally. You gotta have everything, like, so, but if you have like an awesome salmon that you like grilled to perfection and didn't overspice and it's not dry and it's not fishy and it's fresh, and you put some like fresh cilantro or basil or whatever your herb of choice is like on top, now it's really, and it really can take it up a notch. It can make a big difference. Oh, Sarah, I'm so glad you like the analogy. I was just talking to friends yesterday and they're like, you always think in analogies. I'm like, I really do. I'm like a big analogy person. Because I think it really helps, because like concepts are just concepts. But once we can like kind of draw the parallel to something we already understand, it becomes much more like, oh, that is true, right? And so with supplements, it can take you, if you're already in a fantastic place, and I mean that, not just like, okay, it's, if you're doing like all right, it's not going to make a difference. It won't, right? Like if you, I'm trying to think, you know, like, okay, if you get some frozen or even fresh, but let's say you get frozen, what are they called? Brussels sprouts, and you boil them. Now you've got like little mushy balls of farts. Like that's what it's going to smell and taste like. There's no spice you can add to that. It's going to fix it. It's gross. It's soft, it's mushy, and just smells and tastes like farts. Like, good luck, right? It may not be like, maybe it's not bad in the sense that like you won't get sick from it. It's just like not good at all. So there's no sauce. Like even if you roll that around in pesto or amazing garlic oil, it's going to taste like pesto-y farts or garlicky farts, right? Like there's no redeeming something that is already, sorry, I'm just turning my chair, that's already not in good shape with a supplement, just like with pesto, right? Or any other, by the way, look at my new plant. Isn't it so pretty? I got it at the farmer's market. Okay, so then, right, but if you get like fresh Brussels sprouts and you cut them in half and you do a little olive oil and you roast them so good, like just right with salt, and then as soon as they come out of the oven, you add some fresh garlic so it's like heats it a little bit to take out like the kick in your face, but it's like still nice and garlicky. Whoa, now it's going to be so good. Or if you take them out and you toss them in some fresh pesto, it's really going to take it up a notch. Hey, Debbie, it's really going to make it like you'll like, wow, these were so good, but now they're even better, right? And so that to me is the only place for supplements. You have to address what you're eating and what you're doing every day first. Otherwise, you're just like making expensive pee or poop, right? Like it's not going to change things. Number one, like I said, because it can't work in the wrong food environment. And number two is like, just because it's natural and over the counter, like, doesn't mean you know how to take it, right? So, meaning, right, there's different forms of vitamins, there's different forms of minerals. Like in the story that I started with, that's telling you about myself, So one of the ways that I got into nutrition when I was first pregnant is I was experiencing a ton of cramping, and this was like already, I was maybe like 5 or 6 months pregnant with my now 11-year-old. And my doctor at the time like was nervous about it because like it's not good to be cramping when you're 6 months pregnant. Went in, checked it out, nothing, no problem, thank God, not early labor or whatever. But he didn't know what was wrong. He was like, "You're drinking water?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm drinking tons of water. It's like New York in the summer, of course." Right? And so he told me to go on bed rest. And I was like, I've got another like 3.5 months of this. I'm not like gonna like, I mean, obviously I'm not gonna say I'm just gonna listen to it, but I was not happy with that answer. And I wound up speaking to one of my childhood doctors who had been really helpful for me in a lot of ways. And she spoke to me for a while, asked me a bunch of questions. And she's actually in this group now. And she was like, "Oh, I think you're just low in this mineral, which is really common during pregnancy. And it's very common in prenatals that they'll raise certain things, but not the others. And if you don't have a balance between these two minerals, it causes you to cramp even more." So she's like, "Tell me what you're like, can you check your prenatal and tell me like how much is of this and how much is of that?" And to like read it all to her. So I did. And she's like, "Oh yeah, those prenatals, like they just exacerbate. You don't have enough of this and you're getting too much of that." She's like, "Okay, so stop with those, take this instead." And she was right. And when I switched that, the cramping went away. And so that really opened my eyes to how brilliant she was, first of all. Also, to recognize everyone has a specialty. And like my OB at the time was really good at like, helping healthy women, give birth to healthy babies, but didn't know about nutrition, right? And didn't so that asking him wasn't really useful. And I think that's really good to bear in mind in general of like, unless a doctor studies nutrition on their own, the average doctor in all their years of pre-med and medical school and residency has about usually on average 4 hours of nutrition training. So that's, I think, not really relevant, but good to know. Because you want to go to people who know what they're talking about, right? Like, don't ask me, "Does my kid have an ear infection?" I'm like, I don't know. Ask your pediatrician, right? But I would say, think twice before asking your pediatrician, like, what you should start your baby's first foods on, because they didn't study that. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, whatever, right? Like, obviously, you should always talk to your doctor. You should always be responsible. But part of being responsible is thinking about who's the expert on this, right? Anyways, that's kind of like an aside. But my point is that just because it's natural, it's over the counter, doesn't mean that it's harmless and that it's useful and that it's making things better. Like, it was literally the imbalance in my prenatal that was exacerbating my cramping, right? And so for us too, like a lot of things, again, we just think like, oh, like I'll just take it. But like I was saying before, so vitamin C and iron compete for absorption. And so if you're taking an iron supplement and because maybe someone told you you're low in iron, you're so tired, it must be because you're low in iron. Now maybe you are low in iron, but I wouldn't say the solution is to take an iron supplement. That's probably going to constipate you too. And that you need things with its cofactors, right? We need, another good analogy for that is like, you ever feel lonely and you're just like, I need a hug. You feel lonely, right? You don't just need a hug. Hugging a mannequin would not be nearly as effective as hugging a person. And hugging a person who cares will be a lot more effective than hugging a person who doesn't really give a crap, right? And so that's really what it's like when we're like low in something or low in this. It's like when you get it from the food, it provides you with this wide variety. So it gives you the thing, but there's a lot of cofactors that it takes to absorb what you're trying to get. See what I'm saying there? Like, it's not just like the singular thing. It's like there's this and this helps you absorb it. There's a synergistic element going on. And so, hold on, I'm checking my notes for a second. Okay, so by the way, Kayvon asked, should I take a vitamin C that you chew on? So vitamin C is not something in particular that is destroyed in stomach acid. That is what I was talking about, is B12 is destroyed in stomach acid. So that's better as a sublingual. But again, it's like I have it because I know when it's appropriate. And to toot my own horn after years of studying this, I know my food is on point. I know that generally speaking, I'm not like perfect, and I don't like those words of like good or perfect, but I am aware of what my body does well with, and I make a conscious effort to feed myself those things on a very consistent basis because I like feeling good. I like having energy. I like being emotionally stable. I like feeling good in my skin. I like being able to focus. I like being able to be available to the things in my life that matter to me. Nutrition itself is not honestly inherently like super cool to me. Like it is now because I see how it relates to all those things, but it definitely, like I was not one of those kids who like cared at all naturally. I was just like, who cares? And I'd like make fun of my mom and be upset that she like didn't let me have more candy. But it's really it's the foods that you're doing. Hey, Shira. Now I'm like, Shira's amazing. She has her own group called The Good Mood Kitchen, and Shira is an expert on good mood stuff. So if you want to talk to her, check her out. She's also just a really cool person in general. Anyways, that I just always think it's so much more important to get your food in place because you're not going to see a difference without it. You just won't. And that's why my husband came out. As you know, I'm very distractible. And that's where it's worth starting. Once your food is in place, then the supplements really can take you from 95 to 97, right? And so that's the big thing. Okay. And the third thing, so my plant, look, there's little pieces falling because my cat apparently like likes to eat it. I didn't know that about cats, but my husband told me that apparently cats like to eat plants. So the one here is the one the cat likes to eat. Anyways, the other reason that I'm not super into supplements, to be honest, is I don't love the paradigm. I don't think it's the most useful question to be asking. Like, you know, the thing of like, you know, the wrong question gets you the wrong answer type of thing. So if your question is like, I don't feel great. What pill am I missing? What pill am I not taking that's making me feel not great? Like, that's not such a useful question to be asked. It's not the most useful question. I think the most useful question, or one of the most useful questions to be asking yourself is, what am I doing every single day with my food choices and whether or not I am moving my body? And as you guys know, I'm not like a big like worker outer or anything. I'm not anti that, but like when I lost my weight, I didn't work out at all because that's not the mechanism. Like if you want to get strong, work out. If you want to lose weight, you got to address your food because it's the food that controls your hormones, and it's the hormones that controls whether or not your body has access to fat tissue. If your hormones don't let you burn fat tissue, you can work out all you want and you will get very strong and have a way better endurance, but you won't get like definition if you've got, you ever see people who get really strong, but like they don't have any muscle definition because if they've got like that layer of fat that they don't have access to, right? So your exercise builds your muscles, but it's your food that allows your body, that dictates whether your body's going to burn fat tissue or not. But from that aside, one of my points, why I got into that, is that, hold on. Yehuda, can you go in the other room, please, and wait till I'm done? It's super distracting for me. I'm very distractible. And I hear him like tooting around the kitchen, and it's really hard for me to focus. So he probably has headphones in. That's why he's not answering and doesn't hear me. Anyways, okay. So my point is, hold on, I really have to, thank you. Okay, my point is that I don't think it's a super useful question. And what's a way more useful question is, what am I doing every single day with my food choices and with the way that I am moving or not moving my body that is making me feel this way? Because you probably already know some good places to start. Right? Like whenever I have new clients, I'll always ask them, like, what do you already know about yourself? I know it's worse when I do this, and I know it's better when I do this. Now, I'm not saying that that is easy, or sometimes they're like, oh, I know I do better when I X, Y, and Z, but it's really hard to because I'm really addicted to it or I crave it all the time. I'm like, okay, great. That's really good to know. That's why they're coming to me. It's because it's very easy to be like, oh, I feel terrible when I binge on sugar, but I crave it like a maniac. Like, yeah. Okay, so that's why they're here. I'm going to help them not crave it anymore. They don't need me to tell them, maybe don't binge on the entire box of cookies. Like, they don't need me to say that. We're like, oh, I never thought of that, right? But it's a really useful question, and I think for life, that it's the concept of taking that personal responsibility, right? Of like, what within my already like sphere of influence am I already aware of? Or maybe not aware of, like sometimes you're not consciously aware until you ask yourself, but you will get an answer if you honestly ask yourself, what am I doing that's making it worse? And if you like honestly ask yourself, you'll be like, yeah, that too, probably. Right? Like you know. And I think it's that paradigm of asking yourself, what is already within my domain that I can do to make myself feel better? And what are the things that are already in my domain that I'm not doing or that I'm doing that make me feel worse? Because we know that too, a lot of the times. Not entirely, obviously. You may not be an expert in this yet, but there's a lot that you do know, or you could know if you asked. And it's that looking inward and I think, and being open to looking at your life of like, what are the things, like what in my life is working for me and not? Like, it sounds like it is a really deep question, right? Versus like, what pill am I missing? Right? Like, oh, I'm so tired all the time. Okay, like, do you sleep? Are you living off of Chex cereal and almond milk? Because like, maybe that's not the best, right? Like you don't need me to say that, but right. But it's easy. And I'm not judging. I really am not judging because I happen to be really good at this, but there are plenty of things I'm not good at. So it's not a matter of judging yourself and kicking yourself while you're down. But I feel that supplement culture, if I could say such a thing, I feel like so like so millennial being like supplement culture, like everything is a culture now. But the supplemental paradigm, I would say, I feel leans more towards like, oh, something's gonna fix it for me, versus I think it's way healthier to lean more towards like personal responsibility. What can I do to help myself? Obviously there's an overlap, and like I mentioned, I do have some clients taking some more things. I have things that I take, but I use it very supplementally, right? Meaning, if we're gonna go back to our food analogy with like burn food, gross food, if someone's an awful chef, they don't need to be asking, what sauce do I need? What magic sauce am I going to put on this to make it taste good? They got to be asking, how do I learn how to cook? Right? You see what I'm saying? Like, if every time they make anything, it tastes terrible, it's not that they don't have the magic sauce. It's that they don't know how to cook. Right? There's a lot more responsibility. It's a bigger question. It's a more honest, it's a more useful question. Right? And so that's my spiel on that. And so I'll tell you also for me, right? So like I mentioned at the beginning that, you know, when I was pregnant and moody, which were different times, but there were also an overlap there, supplements didn't do anything for me. But once I started to change my food, literally in one day, I was like, whoa, I'm like way more stable, way more energy. And within like a week, my cramping was gone. My energy was up. I wasn't moody anymore. I wasn't nauseous. Like, it was mind-boggling. And then I was like, well, maybe I'm just lucky. Maybe it's just a different stage of pregnancy. I kind of started like being like, maybe it's not real, because it was like kind of inconvenient, right? Like it's way easier just to eat whatever you want and be like, I'm just missing a pill, right? Then like, oh, but the choices I make have a huge impact on my quality of life. And so I did like little experiments on myself of like eating whatever I wanted versus eating what I was seeing made me feel fantastic. And it was like within the hour, I could feel the difference. And so once I started feeling really good because I was eating in ways and moving my body in ways, like honestly, I feel really good walking. The biggest reason I encourage my clients to do any sort of exercise, which I'm big into like walking, is like do it because it makes you happy, because it does. Moving your body, getting more oxygen to your brain. Like we're not designed to be sedentary people. Like that's not in our DNA. We're designed to move. And even honestly, if we want to get like woo woo, but I totally believe in this, like when we sit all day, we experience ourselves as stagnant. When we move and we walk and we make progress, we started here and now we're there, we experience ourselves as people who move through the world. And I can tell you, like I do most of my meditating, if I'm going to call it that, when I'm walking. I often will like call my best friend, one of my best friends, or if she's not available, I'll leave her like voice notes on WhatsApp. And I think better when I'm walking. I often will do like some clients, if I've had them for a long time, I like don't need their notes in front of me because I just like know them so well by this point. And I'll walk while we have our sessions because a lot of my clients are like international and long distance. And I think better. Like I obviously think well when I'm sitting too. I'm sitting here talking to you, right? But because you get the oxygen to your brain and I experience myself as a person who's making progress and is moving through the world. And that is really, really huge, right? The way we experience ourselves. And so, but my point is that once I got my movement, which for me is mostly just walking, right? It doesn't have to be fancy and complicated. And my food in order. Then when I added 1 or 2 strategic supplements, it did make a big difference. Getting me from like 95 to 97 to 98, right? Then it's like, again, with the analogy from the beginning, if I made like an awesome salmon, like not often, but when I make salmon, one of my favorite ways to make it, and my kids also like love it, is I just like fry it in butter. It's so good. People who are like, I don't like fish. They're like, this is so good, what'd you do? I'm like, I just fried it in butter and salt. That's it. But I can tell you if I add a little garlic on top, it like, so much better. But if I would have made fishy, gross, dry salmon, putting garlic on top wouldn't have fixed anything, right? You gotta build the foundation, and then supplementing things on top can make a difference. But it doesn't do anything if the foundation isn't there. The other thing I think worth thinking about is I think a lot of people, there's a lot of like, especially kind of like MLM supplement companies that, I don't like to bash on people. I'm not bashing. I'm just telling you my honest thoughts. That certain, like, I just think it's always important to be a critical thinker, right? You always want to look for, is there conflict of interest? You know, the supplements that I sometimes will recommend to clients, I have like listed on my website because it became easier. Thank God I have a lot of clients. Instead of every time me sending them the Amazon link, I just put it all in one place, right? And so I was like, I'm doing that. Might as well be an affiliate. So whenever they buy it from my page, I get like 10 cents. They buy this, I get like a 10 cents thing, right? Or they get the salt I recommend, I get 10 cents. And so, but I always tell them, you can buy this anywhere. If you want to buy it from a different link, go for it. If you want to get it from Sprouts or Air One or Whole Foods or Trader Joe's, if they got it, like, I'll tell them if it's something that I think like the brand matters. Oftentimes it does, sometimes it doesn't, right? But I like to be as transparent as possible that I'm recommending this because it's good for you, not because it's good for me, right? And interestingly, there's one product that I actually started my family on about like 8 months ago. That's been really cool. And I do now sell it. But
it's not an MLM, it's direct marketing. I'm not really sure what the difference is, to be honest. Apparently the difference is that with MLMs, you can make money just by signing up people under you, versus like direct marketing is, there's no, like, you don't get any benefit for signing people up under you. Just if they sell something, you get a piece of it. But there's no benefit for you to just sign them up. You know what I'm saying? Like, so if they make a sale, they get 10 cents, you get 10 cents, and blah, blah, blah. Anyways, but I'll tell you, I always am like super, like, it makes me uncomfortable. I wish I could just put the link and tell them, and you can buy this anywhere. But it's the kind of thing of like, either they buy it from me or they're going to buy it the person that I get it from, blah, blah, blah. But I'm always like upfront about it and tell them that's the case. And if they don't want to get it, they don't have to get it, because I think that trust is really important, and thinking about people's conflict of interest is really important. Like, is it, I've gotten approached by those supplement companies all the time of like, they're like, oh, because, it's a great business revenue, it's a great business stream, and people auto buy it and they get it sent to them every month and blah, blah, blah. And yeah, it would be. But like, it would be for me, not for my clients. It'd be good for me, right? Like, but like, number one, I get like, so I just think, especially with the MLMs, but it's like, first of all, you always like, who's training? Who's teaching them about the supplements? The company. So how unbiased is that information? Of course it's biased, right? And I'm not like, listen, I'm obviously not anti people making a profit. My business obviously has to make a profit, right? But you want to do it in a way that is as ethical and without conflict of interest, right? And so to me, a lot of these supplement companies, especially if they're MLM, for me are too close to comfort. I'm like, who's to say I really will do so much better on this versus you doing so much better on that? And again, who's training them? Like, when I recommend a supplement to my clients, it's because I've analyzed a gazillion of them on the market. These are the best quality ones. These are the ones that I've tested on myself to see that they work. And so this is the one I think is good. I don't like have ties to the company. And again, I'm not anti that, because I think that like, it's like, am I going to eat my words in 5 years' time? Am I going to develop a relationship with some company and they're going to be like, hey, do you want to promote my brand? And if it's a company I think is really good, maybe I will. But I haven't had that experience yet, right? So, but meaning, and if that day were to come, I hope you would think critically, and that you wouldn't just take my word for it off the cuff, but maybe you take my word for it because like after years of being in my circle, you actually trust my judgment. You know what I'm saying? But to me, it's like, you got to be careful of that, right? Like, it's really interesting from that same vein, not about supplements, but about medications. I had a client one time who was telling me how she's like so conflicted, because she said she's a pharmaceutical rep, and she originally got into it because like her whole family's doctors and they all like helped so many people over their lives. But there's a lot of drugs that she schedules. I'm sorry, my client just texted me, can we reschedule? There's a lot of drugs that she sells that are amazing. And there's some drugs that she sells that she knows have like really terrible side effects. But she's the one who's teaching the doctors about it. She's telling them. So like, just the same way, like when you sign up for something, very often, like you don't read all the red tape. She's like, I see it all the time that the doctors don't necessarily read the whole packet. I just tell them this is what the drug is for. And I kind of gloss over the side effects. And then I tell them all the incentives. If they prescribe this much, these are the bonuses we're going to give them. And so, I kind of feel like I digressed a little bit. But meaning, I just think it's always really important to think critically. And to go back to the beginning, also, when it comes to your health, you want to think of what's going to be useful. I think the most useful question is, what am I doing every single day that's making this better or making this worse? That's the first of all. Number two, that it's not going to work if you're not doing it right. And it's just because it's natural and over the counter doesn't mean like there's no chachma, that there's no science to it, right? Certain things you can't combine, or the time of day, or if you've eaten with like, there's certain, for example, certain mood supplements that Sheer is a super expert on this that I've started to dabble in. I say dabble, but I'm not an expert on them because I find for the work that I do with hormonal weight loss and all the hormonal stuff that I do, that supplements don't make a big difference. She specializes in a lot of mood stuff. She's helped people get off of people that have been on antidepressants for many years. She's helped them be able to not need them anymore. So maybe in her world, it's different. I would say even then, you've got to clean up the food first because they're not going to work otherwise. But anyways, the point is that with her stuff, there's the ones that are super effective. But if you got to take it either 20 minutes before you eat or 3 hours after you eat, because if you take it with food, it competes to be digested, and the whole thing, you're going to absorb 3% of it, right? So there's a way to do things to make it more or less effective. It's not nothing. And so the moral of this story, is that if you want, how would I title this? Why I'm not big into supplements and what matters a whole lot more. What matters a whole lot more is what you're eating every single day and the way that you're moving your body or not moving your body every single day. And that's what's going to make the big difference. Even I realize also I've needed to clarify this because sometimes people think because I'm doing hormonal stuff that it's a bunch of supplements. And I'm like, no, it's not at all. It's all food. Again, maybe there's one, maybe two, but I never will bring it up until we've been working together for maybe a month, maybe even 6 weeks, because it's irrelevant. It's irrelevant until that point. It's you got to build the foundation, and then you can add a little garnish, a little this, a little that, and it can make it better. But it's not, you can't build something from it. It's not, there's nothing there on its own, nothing useful on its own. And so the takeaway is, I think, a good life lesson is focus on what's useful. Focus on what's in your domain. What can you do to make this better for yourself? That you already understand. There's a time to reach out and a time to ask for experts. My husband always laughs because he's a very independent person. And I'm very I'm always working with people and hiring coaches and experts to guide me. I think also I'm an extrovert. I'm a big people person. And my mentality is why would I want to struggle on my own when I can hire someone to tell me how to do this? I don't want to right? If someone already figured this out, that's why I love to read. You can find out the foundational, amazing things that someone spent a lifetime learning. You can read it in a couple hours and gain a lot, right? And so I feel that way about in general, experts. I can putz around on my own trying to figure this out. Or I can hire someone who's going to make it short and sweet. Hold on. Oh, I need to rebuild my diet. I'm super low on fat. I take not intended. I know the importance of fat and it's having a physical effect. Yeah, exactly. Hi, Allie. Thanks for commenting. Right? It totally makes an effect. So, right, if you were feeling whatever it makes you feel, whether that's moody or tired or low libido or hungry all the time or all of the above, right? Instead of being oh, maybe I'm low in this and I need to take this pill. It's I already know that I know I'm low on this. Food, right? So that's that. I hope this is helpful. I hope it's understanding that, you know what I mean? I'm not anti. It's about you want to use it effectively. I don't want you to waste your money. I don't want you to waste your time. I don't want you to lose your faith or your hope. Maybe you don't have faith, but your hope that your body can heal, because I'm big into the belief, and it's literally what I do all day with myself and others, is help people heal. I can't tell you how many people have come in that have I've tried everything. I've tried this, I've tried that. I've tried this diet, I've tried that diet. And I've, my doctor said that once I'm on this medication, I'll never be able to lose weight. Allie, I'm a nutritionist. You must be new. And right, because some medications do make people gain weight. They don't make them magically start eating more. It affects their hormones and it makes them gain weight, right? It may not be the intended effect, but it's one of the side effects. And so what are we going to do, right? So we create a food program that helps them heal that imbalance. And so one of, I feel again, most people will have a little at-home pharmacy like, I actually had a client here last night who was actually a really good friend of mine that I really adore her. And I was like, I asked her, it was her first session. I was like, are you taking anything? She was like, oh, I brought it all. And she had this, like, of course, like, this is so classic, this like duffel bag of, just tons of stuff. Like tons of this is for this is for skin, this is for digestion, this is for mood, this is for sleep, blah, 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 blah. And we went through each one and I asked her, does it help? Do you feel a difference? Out of like the 15, 17 things she's brought, she was like, most of them, she's like, I don't think so, I can't tell, I can't feel. One of them, she's like, I think that one helps. I'm not sure. Almost, but all the rest of them, she's like, I just take it so I feel like I'm trying to do something for myself. And I can tell you, that is not how my clients feel. And if it was, I would be out of business. Because I ask a lot of my clients, my protocols are not simple. That's not true. Are they simple? They're not super complicated, but they're not easy, right? I'm asking my clients to think in a totally different paradigm. We're not talking about calories. We're not talking about grams. We're not talking about, how much you eat versus how much you work out. We're doing a whole different mentality of adjusting their hormones. And it's not a simple process. It's not an easy process, I should say. Again, I think it's not super complicated. Like the execution is not super complicated, but it's not an easy thing. It's not like, oh, instead of having Snickers, have a Lara bar. Like they don't need me for that, right? People can just try that on their own. Do Whole30, go paleo, and if that works for you, great. But in order for my clients to do what they do, they feel a difference right away. If what you're doing is working for you, you'll know that day. You should feel a difference that day. You should feel a difference within one meal. If you're eating the way that your body needs, you will not be sluggish afterwards. You will know when you're full. You will know how much feels good to you. You won't be this ambiguous, like, is that an appropriate portion? You'll know, right? You don't have to like fight with your dog about an appropriate portion. Right? Hey, Allie, I'm glad. We can talk if you want afterwards, not right now. Right? Because you're in touch with your body, when you're giving it what you need, like things start to work and you have to feel the difference immediately. Otherwise, good luck. Good luck making lasting changes that you're going to tell yourself, oh, I'm going to build this and I'll feel better in 6 months. Right? But I'll tell you, even with the food, it makes a difference right away. Like within that day, within that meal, you should feel more focused. You should feel in a better mood. I've literally had clients sitting in front of me. Sometimes, honestly, most of my clients are long distance. Like whether New York or Texas or Israel or Italy or Australia. But I also have some local clients, and every now and then while they're here, I'll feed them something because I can see exactly what they're missing right now. And I see them come back to life. I can see them starting to fade. When you're sitting somewhere and you kind of start to fade and you're trying to focus and you're just like, I feel terrible. This is not good, right? And then you kind of start frenetically oh, what food do I have? And you don't really know what to eat to make yourself feel better. Anything will be better than this, right? And I give them whatever I know they need according to their symptoms, right? I'm not magic. It's the symptoms that tell you, right? If you're fading and you feel lightheaded, that's different than if you're fading and you're really impatient. Those are different vitamin needs. So it's not that I'm a magician. It's I've read a lot of studies. I've done a lot of self-study. I've worked with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of clients. This is how it works. And so I'll give them the food they need. And literally within 5 minutes, I see them bloop, the light bulb comes back on, the flower perks back up, right? That's the kind of response that you need, right? Otherwise, it's not motivating. But I will tell you, even like I've mentioned, there are a handful of clients that take some more supplements for certain things. For example, I have some clients who came in and one of their concerns was arthritis. Wasn't their main thing, but they have a lot of joint pain. So changing their food will bring it very often from an 8 to a 2. Way better. Way better. Then from a 2 to like getting rid of it entirely, I'll tell them, if you have the headspace and you can be bothered, there are some supplements that will also help. They're not supplements that would have made a difference without the food changes, because it would just get like lost in the mess, right? But once the food's in order, so I'll tell them a couple supplements that really help with that. But with the supplements, I tell them it takes about 2 weeks to build up in your system before you're going to feel an improvement. That's a long time to wait, right? And so I just feel like, again, you want to focus on what's most useful to you, what's going to make you the most bang for your buck, and focus right that on in any area of your life. What's going to give you the change that you feel right away, right? Certain things take longer. If you want to lose 100 pounds, that's not happening overnight. But if you want to lose 100 pounds, and part of that is you're hungry all the time and you feel really addicted to a lot of foods, like whether or not you're going to like clinically say you're addicted. I mean, I do honestly have some clients that are that are part of like OA or other sorts of, but I mean, it's not my specialty, but sometimes like I don't work with that element of it. Like they do their own programs with that, but instead of doing like the program designed food protocol, we adjust it and they talk to their sponsor and whatever. Why was I telling you that? That they feel a difference right away, right? Like that we gotta feel a difference right away, and you can't just like push yourself. Pushing yourself is not going to be the answer. You want to ask yourself, what can I do for myself right now? It's going to make the biggest difference. Because like, I'm not necessarily a big Tony Robbins fan, but I do like this one thing he said. I mean, I like a lot of things he said. I just also don't like some things he said, which I guess is kind of like anyone. But meaning there's things I'm going to like and things I don't. And I think that's a really healthy place to be. It's like take what's good and leave what doesn't vibe for you and work for you. But one of the things he said is like, you can only build on your successes. You've got to see yourself as a success, as a winner, and build from that. You cannot kick your own ass to wellness. I will tell you that now. Like, don't come to me thinking you're going to kick your own ass in my program, because you're not. You're going to be nice to yourself. You're going to be gentle with yourself. You're going to hold yourself accountable. You're going to stretch. You're going to learn different things. You're going to do things that feel hard. For a lot of people, not everyone, but for a lot of people, it's hard. It's hard to do. It's different. It's a different way of thinking. It's a different way of being. But you're going to do it with love and gentleness and healing. Healing never comes from pushing yourself. That's not a healing energy. From a physiological perspective, pushing yourself raises your cortisol. It's a stress response. And when you're stressed, all of your secondary functions get shut down because your body's like, I gotta survive this dangerous environment, right? Oh God, like you're like looking around. That's that feeling when you're stressed. You're like, oh God, right? You don't feel like a centered calmness. And so anything that's not immediately important, your body puts on pause, like healing, right? So if you have any sort of metabolic syndrome, which is a thing. It's a thing to have metabolic syndrome. Some people can go on any diet and they freaking lose weight. Hallelujah, good for them. And I mean that. I'm not judging. I may be envious because that's sure as hell not me, or wasn't. Now I'm a lot more flexible now that I've healed so much. But there is a thing called metabolic syndrome where your hormones are imbalanced in such a way that your body will cling to fat tissue with everything it's got. And you could eat nothing but celery and like, what do people try to diet with? I don't even know. Celery and fat-free mayonnaise, which sounds disgusting. I don't know why I thought of that, or go on a juice cleanse and work out like a maniac and not lose weight because your hormones wouldn't let you. And so if you think you're going to kick your own butt, we want to heal your hormones. That's not going to come from kicking your own butt. That's going to come from being loving and supportive and making choices that may be difficult, may be uncomfortable, maybe not what you're used to, may not be your preference, maybe hard, but not in a way. Like one of the things I actually really wanted to talk about, I was going to do another live on this, maybe I still will, is I put it up there. I was surprised. So I always am surprised, by the way, of like what you guys vote on of what winds up winning. I thought it was super interesting to ask, does weight loss have to be hard? And that And I would say, very Jewishly of me, I'm going to answer that question with a question. What do you mean by hard? What is hard? And because my experience of life, and I find this to be true in all areas, is there's different kinds of hard. There's hard that breaks you. There's hard that makes you lose confidence in yourself. There's like meaning like a person who's, God forbid, in an abusive relationship. That's really hard. That sucks, right? And it's a hard that slowly kills them. Kills their spirit, kills their confidence, kills their health. Across the board, it's slowly destroying, or not slowly, destroying them, right? On the other hand, you can have someone who is training for, I'm trying to think of a good example. I have like 17 examples in my head. It's hard to choose one. Training, I don't know. Who's a motivational speaker that's not annoying? They're all kind of annoying, right? We'll go with Gary Vee. I saw something of him earlier, right? Or Will Smith. He's less annoying. I love Will Smith. He works hard, and he'll talk about it all the time. But what you can hear when he talks about working hard, building his business, building his acting career, rapping, whatever, West Philadelphia, born and raised. I definitely wasn't, but he was. It's a hard that builds you. It's a hard that makes you better. There's a voluntary choosing of the hard, of I'm going to do what's good for me, even if it's hard. And it makes you grow as a person, and you feel more aligned with your truer self. You feel like this is me becoming a better version of myself, and this hardness is helping me to get there. Versus, like, okay, one of the things I really like is the concept, like, life is hard no matter what. You get to choose which hard you want. Like, right? Like, so if you are a person who's kind of like more mild-mannered and you're gentle and you're loving, the other side of that is if you don't learn to stand up for yourself, it's very easy for you to be taken advantage of. So if you have some people in your life who like kind of are drawn to that, and they start asking you for a million favors and pushing you past your comfort zone, which they may not even realize, because maybe you don't even articulate it at all, right? So it's hard to be taken advantage of. It's hard to feel like you're treated like crap. It's hard to feel like people only call you when they need a favor. It's hard to feel like no one actually, do they even like me, or they're just using me? That's hard. That's a hard that grinds away at your soul, right? It's also hard to learn to stand up for yourself. It's also hard to be like, what are my boundaries? What am I comfortable with? And then, you know what? I'm going to say it. They're going to ask me, can you do X, Y, and Z? And I'm going to say, you know what? I can't. With no qualifier. No, I'm sorry. No, because. No is a full sentence. Can you do that? No. Right? Like, end of sentence. No apologetics. That's hard to do, especially if you don't know how, especially if you've never done it before. The more you do it, the better you get stronger, right? And so, does weight loss have to be hard? I would say not the way that you anticipate, because most of the time what I experience is people, because most of diet culture is, I'm going to kick my own ass. I am going to like my stupid body wants to eat all these donuts, but I'm going to control it and not let it, and I'm going to get hot. Like, it reminds me of like this like chauvinistic like cartoon of like the controlling husband and like the poor like meh wife, like, oh, right? She wants to go and have fun, but I'm not going to let her. As opposed, like, ew, right? Versus being like, I'm going to do the hard work of standing up for myself. I'm going to choose to eat the things that make me feel good. I'm going to do the hard work of figuring out what I actually want, because you got to know that. Because anything that you try and accomplish in the world ever is going to be hard and require work, and you need to know why it's important to you. Because as soon as you hit your first speed bump, which will probably be like 10 seconds in, you got to decide, is it worth it or not? And if you know what's important to you and why, then it's hard. That's okay. It's hard, whatever, right? Like, it's hard. It's hard to have kids, right? it's also hard not to, right? If you're a person who wants to, that's hard, right? Marriage can be hard. It's really hard to be single too. Standing up for yourself is hard. I'd say it's harder not to, like in the way that it grinds at your soul. And so I feel like, how did we get into this from supplements? I'll tell you how we got into this from supplements. The reason why we got here is because I'm in the biggest, there's different layers. Like I mentioned in the beginning, my bones with supplements is like, they don't work in the wrong food environment. There's a way to do it that you need to know how to do it in order for it to be effective. But underneath it all, I don't think it's a useful paradigm to be like, I don't feel like I'm living my best life. I'm exhausted and bloated. My clothes don't fit. I'm grumpy. I can't focus. So I'm going to go to Whole Foods, drop $200 trying a bunch of pills. Like, I don't think that's or maybe I didn't phrase that as a question. So what pill in Whole Foods is going to naturally fix that or heal me? I don't think that's a really useful question to ask, right? And so I think the more that we can try and train ourselves to think about asking useful questions, the more useful answers we're going to get. Allie, you said, can you post the opposite of that, the skinny version? I don't know what you're referring to. The opposite of what? What is the skinny version of what? I'm happy to answer, but I don't know exactly. So if you can type that, I'll answer that. And so the short answer is that the reason why I'm not big into supplements is because I'm big into results. I want people to see and feel a difference in what they're doing within an hour, within a day. And to have those results be sustainable and long lasting. Also, like I mentioned, like supplements are super freaking expensive. So in addition to them like not really being super effective, they're also expensive. But food, you're buying anyways. And healthy food, honestly, I don't think I spend more than the average family. I don't. Because a lot of the stuff that people buy, like packaged stuff, is also really expensive. Not like I never have chips in my house, but like people that like, oh, I can't buy that X, Y, and Z, that healthy thing because it's too expensive. But like if you go to their closet, their pantry, it's like granola bars and chips and juice boxes and whatever random stuff they've got. Like that stuff is expensive, ounce for ounce. Oh my God. Right? So plus just knowing where to shop. I'm not trying to bash on Whole Foods because I do appreciate when I do have to go there like once in a blue moon and they have the one thing. Although I really don't even bother. I usually just go to Amazon and get it directly delivered. But you want, I'm like pretty like obsessed with efficiency and effectiveness. I don't want to do the long, slow way unless that's the only way. I'll avoid it at all costs. I feel like there's some things in life that just are long and slow. But I want to minimize that and focus on healing as quickly and effectively as possible. And so that's my spiel on that. And what kind of regardless of what it is that you're doing, I really think that taking the perspective of as much personal responsibility as you possibly can muster. That doesn't mean carrying a weight that's so heavy it's crushing for you. But like we're designed to build a weight, even physically, like we're designed to lift heavy things. And as people, as souls, as spirits, whatever you like, we are designed to lift heavy things. We do better. The more responsibility we take for our life, the better our life gets. Always. Right? Because then you can make things better. As long as you're like looking around of like why the circumstances are making it hard. It's not that that's not true. It's just not helpful. Right? Like what are you going to do about that? What you can do is about yourself. Right? And so that's the big thing is that I think that coming at it from the perspective of what's right in front of me. Like maybe I'm exhausted because I freaking get tired every night, but then I stay up for 3 hours on my phone. I'm not saying that you should never ever stay up watching on your phone. I'm saying, what's it worth to you? right? Maybe you need it. I'm not judging you. Maybe you do. Maybe it's so much going on. It is the best choice for you at this point. Maybe it is. I used to be a very judgmental person, but then I learned that you have no freaking clue what someone's going through, and it's pretty stupid for you to think that you know what's best for them. How would you know? Right? You get like a snippet of into someone's life. So I'm not saying that you shouldn't do whatever your coping mechanisms are. I'm just saying every choice we make has a price, and we get to decide if it's the price we want to pay or not. Right? Like I said, when I first figured out like how much food affected me, I was like a little annoyed. Right? Like, part of me liked not knowing, because I love just eating junk all the time. It's so yum. It's so good. Like, I love, and like my favorite stuff is like the most garbagey stuff. Like, I love like Fruit by the Foot and Gushers, and like there's no healthy version of that tastes remotely similar. Like, my husband loves cookies, so he's happy if I make like a healthier version of cookies. There is no healthier version of Fruit by the Foot. Meaning there are, but they don't taste anything like it. It's a fruit leather. Like, what is that? Right? And so there was an element to me that was a little like, I wish I didn't know. I love eating this crap. But there's a part of me that feels that. But there's a bigger part of me that's like, I am so grateful because my life, other than the giving up the Fruit by the Foot, which is like one part of it that I grieve from my life, right? The rest of it is like my focus. I'm not really ADHD anymore. I'm not really moody anymore. My cycle is totally regular. I feel comfortable in my skin. My skin is good. I know when I'm hungry. I know when I'm full. If I skip a meal, I don't get irritable or hangry, right? Like, all the things, I'm like, okay, the price I pay is not shoving Gushers in my face whenever I want. Doesn't mean I can never have it again. It just means there's a price and I know what it is, right? So does anyone have any more questions before I hop off? I'm happy to answer. But if not, then I will see you later. I hope this was useful. And if you have any questions about if you want individual of like how to, implement, let me know. I'm here for you. Bye.